Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sulaiman Surani, and for today's tutorial, let's create a simple drag and drop game on Construct Tree. As you can see here, I've created a simple drag and drop game where the player will have to guess the synonym for happy. So which means they have to grab the right letter tile to the respective frame, and they only have 30 seconds to do that. So let me go through the steps to create this simple drag and drop game and to add a timer to the game. So let's get started. Okay, so let's start a new project, and I've set my dimension to 1920 by 1080, and I have here, I've designed on Photoshop. I have a couple of frames here in PNG format. I have a blue frame, red frame, and a white frame. So we're gonna insert this as individual frames in Construct Tree. I also have 8 letters here. So the naming convention is very important. So I named them accordingly: A1, E1, M1, R1, and R2, and so on. And then I have a background image, and this is the gameplay. And if you take a look at the gameplay here, I only have the question as well as the answer text. I will insert the letters, individual letters, as well as the frames later on Construct. So I'm going to import the gameplay background first. I'm going to insert a sprite. Gameplay background. Okay, so I'm just going to turn on my grid, and I'm going to have it snap to grid as well, so it'll be easier for me. So I'm just going to zoom in. I have 5 frames because I have 5 letters to form up the word Mary. So I'm going to insert the first one first. I'm going to name this as frame 1. So frame 1, I have the white frame. This will be the default frame. I'm going to add another frame here. On frame 1, I'm going to insert the blue frame. So this is the correct answer. So if the answer is correct, the blue frame will appear. And if the answer is wrong, I'm going to add another frame. It will be the red frame. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that the collision polygon is set to bounding box and apply to all animation. Okay, so I have 3 frames here. So this is the default frame, and if the player gets the right answer, the blue frame will appear. If it's the wrong answer, it will be the red frame. It's not going to be an animation. So animation 1, I'm going to set the speed to 0, so it will not flicker. And I'm going to close this. Okay, so this is my first frame. Then I'm going to place it here. I'm going to adjust it later. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clone this. Now, it's not a good idea to copy because the frames will have different outcomes. So instead of copying the frame, I'm going to clone the object type. And just to double check, this frame will have 3 frames, 3 individual frames, 3 colored frames. All right, so that's 1. I'm going to, this is frame 2. Clone another type. This is frame 3. Four, and then one last one. Okay, so I need to position them accordingly. So the grid will be very useful. Probably starts from here. So I'm going to insert the letters now. So I have I'm gonna name them accordingly because here I actually have A1, A1, E1, and G1. So I'm going to insert A1 first. Now, if you think that you actually want to use the letters that and the frames that I actually designed, you can head down to the description box below to download the frames that I've created here. Okay, and the answer is Mary. So it's Merry. So I'm just going to make it slightly difficult. I'm going to bring up the R. I'm going to shuffle the letters. It's going to be something like that. And I'm just going to arrange them accordingly. Like so. Okay. So again, the snap to grid here is very crucial. It makes it easier to arrange our sprite. Okay, so I have the letters done and I have the frames arranged accordingly. The next thing I want to do is I want to set the behavior for these letters. So I'm just going to add a behavior called drag and drop. So we are done with the layout here. We want to set up the correct answer first, which is in this case is Merry. So the M should fall on the first frame, E should be on the second frame, R, and Y. So because there are two R's here, and there could be two possible frames, two possible answer in that sense. The player may drag this particular R to this third frame or the fourth frame, and the second R to the third frame or the fourth frame. So we need to set them accordingly. So if this falls either here or here, is still the correct answer. Okay, and before we move on to the event sheet, let's just add the touch function. Okay, so I'm going to add event. I'm going to focus on the right answer first, the Merry. So I'm going to start with M first, and I'm going to add event. I'm going to look for M1. Scroll down and look for under drag and drop is dragging. Add action. When it's dragged to, when M1 is dragged, select M1 and set position. I'm gonna, okay, M1 set position with frame 1. Okay, frame 1 is the correct answer. So I'm going to type frame 1, double click on this one. I'm going to dot x-axis. So I have, so here I have x-axis and y-axis. So here, frame 1 dot y-axis. So what happens here is that if player drag M1 and match up the position to frame 1 x and y-axis, I'm going to right click on line 1, make sure the whole line 1 is selected, right click and add another condition, and I can select M1 again. And if M1 is overlapping another object, so the object here is the frame 1. So if the object here is frame 1, add action, I want frame 1 to change color, to change the frame, right? Because here I have can set the frame to frame 1. Because on the layout here, I have 3 frames, 3 colored frames. So frame 0 is the default frame, frame 1 is the blue frame, which is the correct answer, and frame 2 the red frame, which is the wrong answer. So I set the frame accordingly. So I set 1 if it's the correct answer. So here frame 1, set animation frame to frame 1. So let's just preview that quickly. Make sure when I drag my M right to frame 1, it sits on the frame nicely, and not only that, it will change from white to blue. that indicates that this is the correct letter in the correct frame. Okay, so close that. So I'm gonna do the same for ERRY. I'm gonna copy and paste this. Make sure I select the whole entire line 1, copy, Control C, Control V, and I just have to change the M, the letters, and the frame. So I'm just gonna double click here and then go back. Here is the E, so E1. Everything else in the middle here is the same. I go back and select E1, go next, and this case this should be frame 2 of the x-axis and frame 2 of the y-axis. And here I'm gonna go back and look for E1 overlapping another object. This is should be frame 2, and double click here, frame 2, set frame, frame 1, correct. Okay, so this is all the E. Copy and paste. This time, this is for the R. So remember we have 2 R's. So we're going to focus on R1 first. So I'm going to go back and look for R1. Okay, R1 will have 2 different possible answers. So here, correct, next. And I'm going to go back to R1 and going to focus on frame 3 first, because here player can drag R1 to either frame 3 or frame 4. So let's focus on frame 3 first. Click done. So frame 3, x-axis, y-axis. Here I'm going to go back and look for R1. Here frame 3. And here as well, frame 3. Set to 1. Okay, so R1 to frame 3, and I'm going to copy and paste this one because R1 can also fall on frame 4 of the x-axis, frame 4 of the y-axis, and R1 frame here should be frame 4. And then here frame 4 will set frame to 1. And this time I'm going to do the same, but this time it's going to be for frame for R2. So I'm just going to select these two, copy and paste. So line number 5 and 6, it should be R2. So here I'm going to double click. I'm going to go back and click on R2, overlapping another object. And here it should be R2 as well. Here I'm going to focus on frame 3. Okay, so frame 3, and then here will be R2. Frame 3, correct. Okay, the last one here, the second R will be R2. Okay, that's correct, R2. Sorry, I have to change this to R2. Okay, next R2 here as well. And this is for frame 4. Okay, and then this is R2. Frame 4, frame 4. Okay, so what happens here is that I have 4 lines of R's. R1 if falls on frame 3 is the correct answer. If R1 falls on frame 4 is also the correct answer. If R2 falls on frame 3 or frame 4 is also the correct answer. So this is what basically it is. Line 3 to line 4. And just double check our work very quickly. R1, frame 4. Okay, 3 and 4. Okay, that's correct. So we are left with letter Y. So just add event. Y1 is dragging. Add action Y1. Look for set position. Set position, and this should be frame 5 of the x-axis, and frame 5 of the y-axis. Then, okay, right click, add another condition, y1 is overlapping another object of frame 5, and frame 5 will set frame to 1. Okay, so we have all the correct answers here. So let's just save and then just hit preview to test the game. So what happens is that here I have my letter M, which is Mary, so the name for happy is Mary. So click on M, correct answer. E, correct. So here I have two options here. This can either go here or can go over here as well. So here can also go here or go to line 4, frame 4 as well. And then Y here. Okay, so here shows all the correct answer. So what we're going to do is that the player will only have 30 seconds to answer this question. Okay, so we're going to set a timer later. So only 30 seconds. You're going to drop countdown before the game's over. We're done with the correct answer. So now what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the wrong answer. What if the player were to click on A and drag to the frame 1? What will happen? The frame will turn to red. As well as if we were to drag here, here, and here. So we have to set all possibilities. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. So for A, I have to set 5. G, I have to set 5 times. And K, I have to set 5 times. That's what we're going to do now. A, G, and K. So I'm going to close this. And because they are going to be a bit confusing, so what we're going to do is we're just going to add a group. I'm not going to call this just correct. Click OK. Okay, I can even color this. Change background color. Okay, I'm just going to color this so that it will be easier for me to see because this is the correct answer. So I'm going to choose blue. Any type of blue will do. All right, so this is the correct answer and I'm going to select all of this and I'm going to drop it into the correct group. Okay, this is all the correct answer and I'm going to now create another group and this is the wrong answers. And this one I'm going to set the color, background color. Wrong is red, so I'm just going to choose red. And here we're going to start with the A, G, and K. A, G, and K, yeah. Okay, so we start with A first. So what if the player drags A? Next, drag, add position to frame 1. Set position to frame 1 dot x-axis and frame 1 dot y-axis. What will happen? Right click, add another condition. A is overlapped with another object, which is the frame 1. Add action. Frame 1 will now change to frame 2, which is the wrong answer. So it will turn red if the player were to drag A to frame 1. I'm going to copy and paste this 4 times. Because there are 4 possible answers. There are 5 possible frames. Player can either drag A to frame 1, frame 2, 3, 4, or 5. Either one will be the wrong answer. Okay, so because 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So all I need to do now is change the frame. What if this were to fall in frame 2? I just have to change frame 2. I just have to change this to frame 2. It will still give me the wrong answer. And here is overlapping frame 2 and frame 2 will set frame 2 to frame 2. Here were to be on frame 3. If it falls on frame 3, And then frame 3 of the x-axis and the y-axis. And frame 3 here. Oh, sorry. That should be correct. That should be A1. A1 overlapping frame 3. Okay, and then a frame 3 here. Set to frame 2. And A1, this is for frame 4. Frame 4x, frame 4y, and this one should be frame. Okay, last one. This is frame 5. Set frame 5, set position. Okay, frame 5. Okay, I made a mistake here. This one should be A1. Let me just go back. A1 overlapping with frame 4. All right. Okay. So all the A's here. Okay. For all the frames, frame 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if A were to fall on either of the frames here, it will change to red. Okay, just check very quickly. Frame 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we're going to do the same for G and K now. So I'm just going to select the whole thing. I'm just going to copy and paste. So here, line number 15. Here, I can just, because the framing wise is the same. So now all I have to do is now to change the letters now. I just can go back and then A, G, and K, right? So the G here, overlapping. Okay, so frame, okay, that's correct. So I just have to change the first one. Everything else is correct. So G, next, done. Okay, so if G overlaps to frame 1, okay, so here will be G as well. I just have to change everything to G. Last one, G1. Okay, so let's just check our work. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's G1 were to be on frame 1 is the correct answer. G1, frame 2, frame 3, 4, and 5. So that's correct. So here I'm going to copy and paste again the last letter, which is the K. So I'm going to copy and paste. So line number 20, I just have to change G1. Now I have just changed to AGK, K1. K1 here as well. K1. Let me know if you enjoy all this clicking. I kind of enjoyed it. It just requires a lot of concentration. Sometimes we just get messed up. And the thing about construct, thing about programming is that one simple error, your game will not work. See? I'm not paying attention. So here I have to go back all the way to okay, frame 4, last one, and G1 overlaps with K1, sorry, K1. Okay, let's just check our work very quickly. So here, wrong answer. A, I have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To frame 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All the wrong answer. And I have G. I have G 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To frame 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then K, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to frame 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all set to frame 2. Okay, so that's correct. So here, the top part, I have all the correct. I have all the correct answers. Here, I have all the wrong answers. And let me just hit play. Okay, so if I click on A, if play drop here is the wrong answer. Right? Instead, if I will click M, M is the correct answer. If I have R here, I haven't set R yet. So you also need to code in such a way that if R were to fall here, it also will actually also reflect the red color. Okay, here is the right answer. And Y as well. If Y were to fall into here, this frame or this frame and this frame, it will turn to red. Okay, as well as here. So MERRY. Okay, so the AGK here, if it falls here, then it will be a wrong answer. Okay, so the process is the same, that you can actually use for to set such a way that if the player were to set K here, the red frame will appear. So what we're going to do next is we're going to set the timer. Player only have 30 seconds to complete the game before it reaches to game over. So let's just head over to the layout page and just insert a text. I'm going to call this timer text. And this is the same as what we did for the scoring system. So here I'm gonna name this as timer, or capital letters. Bold it, maybe 40. No, okay, maybe about 30. And white. Okay, so I have the timer here. That's going to count down to 0, from 30 to 0, 30 seconds, right? So event sheet, let's add a global variable and call this timer. Has to be a number. Initial value is, let's set this at 30 seconds. I think it's quite a easy answer, easy question, so they should be able to answer within 30 seconds. So initial value is 30. Okay, and let's go to system. Look for every tick, which represents every second. I'm going to add action, set the timer text. I'm going to set text. I can even type here as well, set text. Type timer colon, because I have colon here just now, space, and then we have n timer that is from the global variable. Okay, so open inverted commas, timer colon space, close inverted comma, and timer, the global variable timer here, and click done. we go to system. Let's go to all the way down, and every x seconds, every 1 second is going to system subtract from global variable timer to 1. Okay, so every 1 second is going to subtract 1 from the timer, so going to count down to 0. So what happened? It reaches 0, game over. So game over here. I'm just going to have zoom out. I'm just going to add another sprite here very quickly. Click on sprite. I'm just going to go sprite. This is a game over overlay. I'm just going to call it overlay. This is just like a one color. Okay, what I'm trying to do is that when it reaches game over, this thing will just appear with a game over text. Game over text. I'm gonna put game over, and this is going to be huge across the screen. Okay, not big enough. 150. Okay, so I have that in the center. Okay, so it's going to be invisible first. I'm going to select the overlay. This is going to be initially visible. I'm going to uncheck that. Similarly for the text, game over text, it's going to be initially visible. I'm going to uncheck that first. It's going to be invisible. So what happens is that if I go to event shade, what happens? The timer reaches to 0. That game over text will appear. So I'm just going to go add event. I'm going to look for system. I'm going to compare variable. Compare variable. The variable here is timer, and if the timer equals to 0, add action. I want the overlay to set to visible, as well as the game over text to set visible as well. So I'm pretty much done here. Okay, so that's how you actually create a simple drag and drop game. Let me know if you actually enjoyed this tutorial. If you want to use the assets that I use here in terms of the frame, the letters, and the background image, you can head over to the description box below and download the assets for you to use. Don't forget to like this video, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.